Get this trash out of my hospital before she infects everyone else." Those words cut through the emergency room like a knife. Nurse Linda Martinez didn't whisper them. She announced them loud enough for everyone to hear. Her hand, covered in a latex glove, shoved hard against Sarah Thompson's shoulder. Sarah stumbled backward, her designer handbag hitting the floor with a crash. The contents are scattered everywhere. Linda's foot came down deliberately, crushing Sarah's car keys and a shiny black card into the hospital floor. Blood dripped from Sarah's temple onto her plain t-shirt. She caught herself against the wall, saying nothing. Her brown eyes stayed calm, even though everyone was staring. 15 people watched in silence. 4 phones started recording. A little girl whispered to her mom, "Why is that nurse so mean to her?" Linda smiled, a cold, satisfied smile. Some people need to remember where they belong. Have you ever been treated like you were invisible? Like you didn't matter at all? The clock on the wall showed 11:47 p.m. Sarah carefully sat back down in the plastic chair. Her movements were slow and controlled. She pressed tissues from her pocket against the cut on her head, while Linda watched with obvious pleasure. "Insurance card?" Linda demanded for the 5th time tonight. Her voice was loud, intentionally loud. "And don't give me some fake government card. I can spot those a mile away." Sarah calmly pulled out her Blue Cross insurance card, the premium kind. Linda grabbed it from her hand, held it up to the light like she was checking for fake money, then tossed it back at Sarah, probably stolen. At the front desk, Linda's voice carried across the entire waiting room. "We've got a problem patient in Bay 3. Claims she has real insurance." She made air quotes with her fingers, if you know what I mean. Other staff members looked over. Sarah felt their assumptions forming. Their judgments are settling into place. But here's where things get interesting. Jessica Rodriguez, a young mom waiting with her sick baby, had seen enough. She opened Facebook Live on her phone. "You need to see this racist nonsense happening at Memorial General right now," she whispered into the camera. "They're treating this black woman like absolute garbage." The viewer count started climbing. 52, 89. 174 people watching live. Linda walked back to Sarah with her clipboard. "When exactly did this accident happen?" The way she said accident made it clear she didn't believe it. "Around 10:15, Sarah answered calmly. "I was rear-ended on Sunset and Main." "Uh-huh." Linda's eyebrow shot up. "And you just happened to be in that neighborhood?" Sunset and Main wasn't exactly the safe part of town. Not the kind of place someone like Sarah, with her calm voice and gentle manner, would normally be at night. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Surgery running over. Traffic cleared. Be there in 15 minutes. "Hang on, love." She checked the time. 11:52 p.m., 15 minutes until midnight. Meanwhile, Jessica's live stream was exploding. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. "This is disgusting. Someone call the news. What hospital is this? Somebody tag the mayor." The viewer count jumped. 342, 518, 697. A local hashtag started appearing in the comments. Memorial shame. Linda noticed people filming and marched over to Jessica. "Ma'am, you need to put that phone away. This is a medical facility." "It's a public space," Jessica replied firmly, keeping her camera steady. "And I'm documenting discrimination." "Discrimination?" Linda laughed, a sharp fake laugh that echoed off the walls. "We treat everyone the same here. Some people just think they deserve special treatment because they feel entitled." She turned back to Sarah, her voice getting louder. "Speaking of which, Miss..." She glanced at her clipboard mockingly. "Thompson, if that's even your real name, we're going to need an actual emergency contact, someone who can pay your bills." You won't believe what happened next. From her scattered belongings on the floor, Sarah quietly picked up her things. Her movements were careful, almost meditative. Among the items, viewers watching Jessica's stream caught glimpses of things that didn't match Linda's assumptions. A first-class Delta boarding pass from 3 days ago, an American Express Centurion card, the exclusive black card with no spending limit, a Tiffany keychain that probably cost more than Linda's car payment, but Linda didn't see any of it, or maybe she chose not to. In her mind, expensive things carried by a black woman in simple clothes could only mean one thing: fake, stolen, or borrowed. "Ma'am," Sarah said quietly, "I've been waiting here for almost 3 hours with a head injury. Could someone please examine me?" "Oh, you want the VIP treatment?" Linda interrupted, hands on her hips. "Let me explain something, sweetheart. This isn't the Four Seasons. We help patients based on medical need, not based on who complains the loudest." The irony wasn't lost on Jessica's viewers, now at 1,240. Linda was the only one making noise. A security guard approached. David Wilson, a kind-looking African-American man in his 50s, looked deeply uncomfortable with what was happening. He'd worked at Memorial General for 9 years and had never seen Linda this openly hostile. "Ma'am," David said gently to Sarah, is there someone you can call? Maybe you'd feel better at a different hospital." Sarah looked up at him with such grace that David immediately regretted suggesting it. "I was brought here by paramedics," she explained calmly. "After a car accident, they said I needed treatment for a possible concussion." Linda snorted. "Possible concussion? You seem pretty alert to me, alert enough to cause problems." But wait, it gets worse. Jessica's live stream hit 1-800 viewers. Comments were getting angrier by the second. "Fire that nurse now." This is 2025, not 1955. "Someone call Channel 9. What's that nurse's full name?" At exactly midnight, things escalated. Head nurse Karen Bradley came out from the back office, drawn by the commotion. She was Linda's bosom, and unfortunately, they thought alike. "What's going on here?" Karen asked, but her tone made it clear she'd already decided who was causing the problem. "Difficult patient," Linda reported quickly. "Demanding immediate attention, claims discrimination when she doesn't get her way. I've asked her to leave several times." Karen looked Sarah up and down, the plain clothes, the calm face that she misread as attitude, the crowd of phones now pointed in their direction. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the building. You're disturbing patients who have real medical emergencies." Real medical emergencies, as if Sarah's bleeding head wasn't real. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Parking now, walking in, almost there. She glanced at the time. 12:02 a.m. "You have 3 minutes to gather your things and leave voluntarily," Karen announced, "or we'll call the police for trespassing." Jessica's live stream exploded. 3,400 viewers, shared 247 times in the past 15 minutes. The hospital's Google reviews were dropping in real time as angry viewers left 1-star ratings with detailed descriptions of what they were witnessing. Sarah stood slowly. The movement made fresh blood trickle from her temple. She gathered her belongings with the same quiet dignity she'd shown all night. The crushed items from her purse, the boarding pass, the Centurion card, the Tiffany keychain, went back into the bag without ceremony. As she reached for her phone to check Michael's latest text, Linda made one final devastating mistake. "And next time," Linda called out loudly, making sure everyone heard, "try the free clinic on Oak Street. That's more your speed." Every phone in the waiting room was recording now. Jessica's viewers had reached 4,200. The hashtag, Memorial Racism, was trending across the city. Sarah paused by the elevator and turned back to face Linda for the first time all evening. She smiled, a small, knowing smile that made David, the security guard, take an involuntary step backward. "You really don't want to do this," Sarah said softly. But Linda had no idea what was coming. The elevator dinged. The doors opened at 12:03 a.m., but instead of Sarah stepping inside, ER Director Brian Foster stepped out. He was a thin man in his early 40s with the nervous energy of someone constantly worried about lawsuits. The sight of multiple phones recording in his emergency room made his left eye twitch. "What's happening here?" Brian's voice had the forced authority of middle management trying to control a situation beyond his control. Linda jumped at the chance. "Mr. Foster, thank God. This woman has been disrupting our entire emergency room. She's refused to leave despite multiple requests. She's encouraged other patients to film us, and she's making crazy accusations about our staff." Brian looked around the waiting room. Jessica's live stream was still going strong. "Ma'am," Brian addressed Sarah with practiced corporate politeness, "I understand you're upset, but you're creating a disruption for other patients who have legitimate medical needs. We need you to leave immediately." There's that word again. Legitimate. Sarah's phone showed a new text from Michael. "Elevator now. Stay exactly where you are." She checked the time. 12:04 a.m. "I have a head injury from a car accident," Sarah said calmly, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet room. "I was brought here by paramedics who said I needed immediate medical attention. I have premium insurance. I've been waiting almost 3 hours, and now you're asking me to leave without treatment." Her words were measured, factual, devastating in their simplicity. Brian shifted uncomfortably. He could see the phone's recording, could imagine the headlines. "Hospital refuses treatment to injured black woman." But Linda was a 25-year employee, and Karen was his head nurse. Surely they wouldn't act this way without good reason. "Security!" Brian called to David, who was standing nearby, wishing he could disappear. "We need to escort this patient out for trespassing." David didn't move. In 9 years of security work, he'd never felt worse about his job. "Sir," David said quietly, "maybe we should just let the doctors take a look. She is bleeding." Linda whirled on him. "David, your job is security, not medical decisions. When management gives you an order, you follow it." And then, everything changed. The live stream viewers were sharing frantically now. Memorial shame was trending citywide. Hospital reviews continued plummeting. 4.1 stars to 3.5 to 2.9 in real time. Someone had found the hospital's Twitter account, and mentions were exploding. At Channel 9 News, reporter Amanda Chen was getting dressed after a viewer tipped her off. The station's social media person had flagged the trending hashtag, and the live stream link was being shared in their newsroom group chat. Back in the ER, Brian pulled out his phone and called the police non-emergency line. "We need an officer at Memorial General Hospital for a trespassing situation." "ETA 10 minutes, came the reply. 12:06 a.m. Linda smiled triumphantly. "You heard that? 10 minutes until you're arrested for trespassing. Still want to stay?" Jessica's live stream had reached 6,800 viewers. Comments were flowing too fast to read. "Someone get a lawyer. This is literally criminal. I'm calling the hospital right now. Stay strong, sister. Where are the real doctors?" As if answering that last comment, Dr. Rachel Park emerged from behind the treatment curtains. She was a first-year resident, exhausted from a 16-hour shift, but the noise had finally broken through her focus on patient charts. "What's happening out here?" Dr. Park asked, looking at the phones, the crowd, and Sarah's bleeding temple. "Has this patient been treated?" Linda jumped in fast. "Doctor, this woman is being disruptive and refusing to leave. Mr. Foster has called security." Dr. Park looked confused. "But she's clearly injured. Has anyone done a basic check? Looked for concussion symptoms?" "That's not your concern," Karen interrupted sharply. "This is an administrative matter now." You won't believe what the doctor did next. The young doctor's medical training clashed with the hospital hierarchy. She looked at Sarah's head wound, then at the phones recording everything, then at the hostile faces of the nursing staff. "I need to check with the attending physician," Dr. Park stammered. "The attending is in surgery," Linda said quickly. "It has been all night." This was technically true, but incomplete. Dr. Park didn't know that the attending surgeon was Sarah's husband. 12:08 a.m. Sarah's temple was still bleeding. Despite almost 3 hours in a medical facility, no one had cleaned the wound, checked for glass, or performed even basic first aid. Jessica made sure her live stream captured this detail. "Look at her," Jessica said to her phone camera. "Still bleeding after 3 hours. This is about race, y'all, nothing else." The viewer count hit 8 out of 100. Brian was getting desperate. The social media situation was spiraling beyond anything he'd ever handled. His phone kept buzzing with notifications. The hospital's Facebook page was being flooded with angry comments. Someone had started calling the main switchboard to complain. "Ma'am," Brian said to Sarah, his voice taking on a threatening edge, "you have exactly 3 minutes to leave voluntarily, or you'll be arrested for criminal trespassing. Is that really what you want?" Sarah checked her phone. 12:10 a.m. "I want medical treatment for my injuries," she said simply. "That's all I've wanted since I arrived." "Well, you can't have it here," Linda snapped, her professionalism finally cracking completely. "Maybe try County General. They're used to dealing with your type." The waiting room went dead silent. Jessica's live stream viewer count spiked to 10,200 as people shared the clip of Linda's barely hidden racism. Dr. Park stepped forward. "That's completely inappropriate. You're going to return to your patients," Karen cut her off firmly. "This woman is not your responsibility." 12:12 a.m. Police sirens became audible in the distance. Sarah stood quietly in the center of an increasingly hostile circle of hospital staff. Patients around the room were divided, some filming supportively, others looking away uncomfortably, a few nodding approval at the staff's actions. Her phone buzzed with another text from Michael. 3 minutes. I can see the crowd from the elevator security monitor. Stay strong. For the first time all evening, Sarah spoke with something other than calm resignation in her voice. She looked directly at Linda, then at Karen, then at Brian. "You really don't want to do this," she repeated. But this time, there was something in her tone that made David take another step back. Linda laughed harshly. "Are you threatening us? Security." But David was staring at Sarah with dawning recognition. Something about her posture, her unshakable calm despite the escalating humiliation, the expensive items from her purse, the way she kept checking her phone. "Ma'am," David said slowly, "what did you say your last name was?" "Thompson," Sarah replied quietly. David's eyes widened. There was only one Thompson that everyone at Memorial General knew by reputation. And then the elevator dinged. The police sirens were getting closer. Jessica's live stream had peaked at 12,400 viewers. The hashtag Memorial Shame was trending nationally now, picked up by social justice accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers. 12:13 a.m. Brian was on his phone with hospital administration, frantically explaining the situation to the night supervisor. "Yes, sir, we have it under control. No, sir, no press calls yet. Yes, I understand the importance of avoiding negative publicity." Linda was drunk on power, the validation of having authority figures support her judgment. She pointed at Sarah dramatically. "You have exactly 60 seconds to walk out that door voluntarily, or you'll be dragged out in handcuffs. Your choice, sweetheart." Sarah looked at her phone one final time. 12:14 a.m. Behind her, the elevator dinged. Everyone in the waiting room turned toward the sound. The doors began to slide open. Sarah smiled. That same small, knowing expression that had made David nervous earlier. But now he understood why. "Too late," she said softly. The elevator doors opened with mechanical precision. At 12:15 a.m., Dr. Michael Thompson stepped into the waiting room like a force of nature. 6'3", broad shoulders, with the quiet confidence that came from 18 years of saving lives in emergency medicine. His hospital badge caught the fluorescent light. Michael Thompson, M.D., Chief of Emergency Medicine. The effect was instant. Linda's mouth fell open mid-sentence. Karen's clipboard hit the floor with a clatter. Brian's phone call ended abruptly as his hand went limp. Even Dr. Park straightened unconsciously. Everyone knew Dr. Thompson's reputation. For several heartbeats, nobody moved. Michael said nothing. His eyes swept the scene with surgical precision. His wife standing in the center of a hostile circle, blood still trickling from her temple, phones recording everything, tension thick enough to cut. He walked directly to Sarah. No hurry, no drama. Just the purposeful movement of a doctor approaching a patient. "Let me see," he said quietly, his voice carrying natural authority. From his coat pocket, Michael pulled out a small medical kit, something he always carried. He gently tilted Sarah's chin to examine the wound under the harsh waiting room lights. His touch was professional but tender, checking for glass, assessing depth, evaluating for concussion signs. The waiting room was tomb silent. Jessica's whispered commentary to her live stream was barely audible. "Oh my God, y'all, I think that's Dr. Thompson. Dr. Thompson." Her viewer count spiked to 16,800. Linda found her voice first, though it came out strangled. "Dr. Thompson, we didn't know—" Michael continued his examination without acknowledging her. He cleaned Sarah's wound with expert precision, applied a butterfly bandage, checked her pupils with a penlight. His movements were careful, methodical, completely focused on his patient. When he finished, he straightened and looked directly at Linda for the first time. "In 22 years of emergency medicine," Michael said, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority, "I have never been more ashamed to work in this hospital." The words hit like physical blows. "Doctor, Patricia stammered. "She didn't say, she never mentioned—" Sarah spoke for the first time since Michael arrived, her voice carrying new strength. "Linda, meet my husband. Your boss's boss's boss." The revelation rippled through the waiting room like a shockwave. Jessica's livestream exploded with comments. "Plot twist of the century! That's his wife? Oh, snap! She's about to own this hospital. Linda is so fired." But Sarah wasn't finished. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, holding it up for everyone to see. Sarah Thompson, Esq. Thompson and Associates, Civil Rights Law. The second revelation hit even harder than the first. Karen's face went white. Brian looked like he might pass out. Dr. Park covered her mouth in shock. David, the security guard, actually smiled for the first time all evening. "Would it have mattered who I was married to?" Sarah asked, her voice carrying across the silent waiting room. Should it have mattered? The question hung in the air like an indictment. Michael turned to face the assembled staff, Linda, Karen, Brian, and the growing crowd of nurses and orderlies who had emerged from the back, drawn by the commotion. "This woman," he said, gesturing to Sarah, "has been bleeding in your waiting room for almost 3 hours. She was brought here by paramedics with a head injury. She has premium insurance. She has been nothing but patient and polite." His voice remained controlled, but everyone could hear the fury underneath. Instead of receiving medical care, she was humiliated, had her belongings scattered on the floor, was called trash, was accused of theft, was threatened with arrest, and was told to seek treatment at a free clinic. Each accusation landed like a hammer blow. Linda tried to interrupt. "Dr. Thompson, that's not exactly—" "Are you suggesting the video evidence is inaccurate?" Michael asked quietly. Linda's face went white. Video evidence, the live stream, the phones. Everything was recorded. Jessica helpfully called out, "We got it all, doctor. Every word." But here's where it gets really interesting. Brian finally found his voice. "Dr. Thompson, surely there's been a misunderstanding. We can resolve this internally." "Can we?" Sarah interjected smoothly. She pulled her phone from her purse and showed the screen to the room. "Because I've been recording audio since I arrived, and I have the live stream footage, and I have witness statements from 15 patients, and hospital security cameras captured everything." The legal implications crashed over the administrative staff like a wave. But Sarah had saved the best for last. "Linda," she said conversationally, "you mentioned earlier that some people need to remember where they belong. Would you like to know where I belong?" She reached into her purse one more time and produced a folder of documents. "4 months ago, I won a $3.1 million settlement against Riverside Hospital for healthcare discrimination. Last month, I was hired by the Department of Justice to investigate systemic bias in regional hospitals." Linda gripped the desk for support. "And tomorrow morning," Sarah continued with devastating calm, "I was scheduled to present my preliminary findings to the State Attorney General's office, findings that will now include a comprehensive case study of Memorial General Hospital Emergency Department." The silence stretched on forever. Michael looked at his wife with obvious pride, then turned back to the staff. "Dr. Park," he said to the young resident, "thank you for trying to intervene. That took courage." Dr. Park nodded, speechless. "David," Michael addressed the security guard, "thank you for your restraint and basic human decency." David straightened with visible relief. Then Michael's gaze fell on Linda, Karen, and Brian. "As for the rest of you," he said quietly, "we'll be speaking with hospital administration in the morning." Jessica's live stream had reached 22,000 viewers. The story was spreading across social media faster than the hospital's crisis team could track. Memorial Shame and Dr. Thompson wife were trending nationally, but Sarah still wasn't finished. She looked directly at Linda, the woman who had humiliated her, scattered her belongings, called her names, and tried to have her arrested. "Linda," Sarah said with devastating calm, "you were right about one thing. Some people do need to remember where they belong." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Your place is about to change dramatically." The elevator dinged again. This time, it was hospital CEO Dr. Margaret Chen, who had been frantically called at home as the social media situation exploded beyond control. Dr. Chen stepped into a waiting room where the power balance had completely shifted. Her eyes went immediately to Michael, the star physician she couldn't afford to lose, then to Sarah, her business card and legal documents. Hand to the phones, still recording everything. "Dr. Thompson," she said carefully. "Mrs. Thompson, how can we make this right?" Sarah and Michael exchanged a look. Husband and wife, attorney and physician, two people who had just endured something that would change everything. "That," Sarah said quietly, "is exactly what we're going to discuss." 6 months later. The transformation. Dr. Margaret Chen stood in the center of chaos like a captain whose ship was sinking. The hospital CEO was sharp. In her late 50s, she'd survived countless crises, but never one unfolding in real time across social media with 22,000 people watching. Her phone buzzed non-stop. The hospital's PR director was texting frantically, "Twitter mentions up 3,100%. News stations are calling. Need damage control now." "Perhaps we should move this conversation somewhere more private," Dr. Chen suggested diplomatically, gesturing toward the offices. "No," Sarah said firmly. "This happened in public. The resolution happens in public." Jessica's live stream viewers erupted in approval. The count hit 24,000 and is climbing. Dr. Chen nodded reluctantly. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through the digital disaster. The hospital's Google reviews had crashed from 4.1 stars to 2.6 stars in 40 minutes. Their Facebook page was flooded with thousands of angry comments demanding Linda's termination. A notification popped up. Channel 9 reporter Amanda Chen was in the parking lot. "Mrs. Thompson," Dr. Chen began carefully, "I want to apologize on behalf of Memorial General for what you've experienced tonight. This is absolutely not who we are or what we stand for." Sarah remained standing, her posture straight and professional. Michael flanked her left side, his presence lending weight to every word she would speak. "Dr. Chen," Sarah replied with courtroom precision, "with respect, your apology addresses the symptoms, not the disease. What happened tonight wasn't a mistake. It was a system failure operating exactly as designed. And then Sarah dropped the bomb. She opened her legal folder and pulled out a tablet, swiping to a prepared presentation that made it clear this moment had been anticipated, planned for. Memorial General's emergency department serves 52,000 patients annually, Sarah began, her voice carrying measured authority. Your department generates $920 million in revenue per year. Hospital-wide, you employ 4,800 people and manage a $3.2 billion annual budget. The precision of her data made Dr. Chen's stomach drop. This wasn't an angry patient making emotional threats. This was a legal professional who had done comprehensive research. In the past 2 years, Sarah continued, your hospital has received 41 documented complaints related to discriminatory treatment. Average settlement for healthcare discrimination in this state, $1.4 million per case. Class action potential for systemic discrimination, $50 to $70 million. Linda, who had been hovering near the nurse's station, made a small noise that might have been a whimper. Brian stepped forward desperately. Mrs. Thompson, surely we can resolve this internally. One incident doesn't prove a pattern. One incident? Sarah's eyebrow arched. She turned her tablet toward the assembled crowd and began scrolling through screenshots. Yelp reviews from the past year, she announced. Nurse was extremely rude to my Hispanic grandmother. Asian family waited 4 hours, while white patients were seen immediately. Staff made assumptions about my insurance based on how I looked. Each review appeared on screen with timestamps and detailed accounts. Google reviews, Sarah continued, waited 7 hours while white patients with less serious problems were prioritized. Security followed me around like I was going to steal something. Nurse spoke to me like I was stupid because of my accent. The evidence was damning, comprehensive, publicly verifiable. Then Michael dropped his own bomb. Dr. Chen, he said calmly, 4 weeks ago, I received a formal offer for Chief of Emergency Medicine at St. Luke's Hospital. The compensation package represents a $380,000 annual increase, plus research funding and support staff. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Memorial couldn't afford to lose its star physician. My wife and I have discussed this opportunity extensively, Michael continued. Tonight's events have accelerated our decision timeline. The offer expires Friday at 5 p.m. Sarah resumed control. Dr. Chen, your state accreditation review is scheduled for next month. A discrimination complaint during an active review triggers an automatic investigation that can delay accreditation for 2 years. The CEO's face went pale. State accreditation was essential for insurance contracts and government funding. Additionally, Sarah continued, the Department of Justice has been investigating healthcare discrimination in major cities. Our region is under review. One well-documented case could trigger a federal investigation of your entire operation. What do you want? Dr. Chen asked quietly. Sarah's smile was professional and terrifying. Immediate actions, effective within 24 hours. Sarah began, her voice taking on the rhythm of someone dictating settlement terms. First, Linda Martinez is suspended without pay pending an external investigation. Mandatory bias training and formal reprimand before any consideration of returning. Linda's face crumpled, 25 years of employment hanging in the balance. Second, Manager Brian Foster is removed from his supervisory position. 20% salary reduction, mandatory retraining, 6-month probation. Brian's mouth opened in protest, then snapped shut. Third, written apology from hospital administration posted on your website, social media, and provided to local news within 12 hours. Fourth, all medical expenses related to my treatment tonight were waived. Priority scheduling for follow-up care. Dr. Chen nodded rapidly. Of course. I'm not finished, Sarah continued smoothly. System-wide changes within 30 days. She advanced to her next slide. patient advocate with legal training stationed in the emergency department 24/7. Direct reporting to administration, bypassing department hierarchies. Anonymous reporting app for discrimination complaints. QR codes in every waiting area, patient room, and common space. 48-hour investigation requirement. Body cameras for all security personnel. Weekly footage review by the patient advocacy team. Quarterly review by external auditors. Mandatory cultural competency training for all staff with annual recertification. Career advancement tied to cultural competency metrics. Jessica's live stream viewers were witnessing comprehensive corporate accountability in real time. Long-term accountability measures within 90 days. Community Oversight Board, 9 voting members including 4 patient representatives, 2 civil rights leaders, and 3 external medical professionals. Monthly meetings, quarterly transparency reports are published online. Management bonuses tied directly to diversity metrics and patient satisfaction scores related to cultural competency. External auditing firm conducting quarterly bias assessments. Results published on the hospital website. Annual $125,000 donation to local civil rights organizations focused on healthcare equity. The transformation Sarah demanded was breathtaking, a complete reimagining of the hospital's approach to equity and accountability. Dr. Chen looked around at the phone's recording, at Michael, whose resignation letter was ready, at 28,000-plus live stream viewers, and at the social media crisis trending nationwide. "And if we agree to these terms?" she asked. "No lawsuit filed," Sarah replied simply. "No federal complaints. My husband withdraws his St. Luke's application. This becomes a case study in institutional accountability." The offer was reasonable, comprehensive, non-negotiable. Dr. Chen extended her hand. "Mrs. Thompson, you have a deal." As they shook hands, applause broke out in the waiting room. Jessica's live stream peaked at 31,000 viewers. But Linda had one last moment of spectacularly poor judgment. "This is insane," she called out. "One complaint and you're restructuring the entire hospital? She's just playing the race card for money." The room went silent. Sarah turned slowly to face Linda, her expression unchanged. "Linda," she said quietly, "you just violated your suspension terms by engaging in retaliatory behavior. Dr. Chen, that constitutes grounds for immediate termination." Dr. Chen didn't hesitate. "Linda Martinez, you are terminated immediately. Security will escort you out." And with that moment, captured live by 31,000 viewers, the transformation of Memorial General Hospital officially began. The transformation began immediately. By 7 a.m. the following morning, Linda's termination was official. Her 25-year tenure ended with a security escort to the parking lot, carrying a box of personal items and a termination letter citing discriminatory behavior toward patients. Brian found himself reassigned to the hospital's billing department, processing insurance claims in a windowless office. His 20% salary cut meant downsizing his apartment and canceling his vacation plans. Dr. Chen spent that first day in emergency meetings with the board of directors, legal counsel, and crisis consultants. The live stream had been viewed 420,000 times within 12 hours. Memorial Shame was trending nationally, with major news outlets requesting interviews. But Sarah Johnson had kept her word. No lawsuits were filed, no federal complaints were submitted. The story, while viral, remained focused on accountability rather than destruction. The hospital's public apology appeared on their homepage, replacing the usual promotional content. Memorial General Hospital acknowledges that Sarah Thompson experienced discriminatory treatment in our emergency department. This was not an isolated incident, but part of systemic failures in our policies and culture. We take full responsibility and are implementing comprehensive reforms to ensure all patients receive dignified, equitable care regardless of race, appearance, or perceived background. The apology was shared 68,000 times across social platforms. Comments were mixed. Some praised the accountability, others called it too little, too late. But the conversation had shifted from outrage to oversight. Sarah's first requirement was implemented within 72 hours. Emma Martinez, a Stanford law graduate with 6 years of civil rights experience, was hired as the hospital's first patient advocate. Her desk sat prominently in the emergency waiting room with a sign. Discrimination concerns? Speak with Emma. On her first day, 4 patients approached with complaints. 3 involved language barriers where interpreters weren't provided. 1 concerned a janitor who made inappropriate comments about a patient's immigration status. All 4 issues were resolved within 24 hours. The anonymous reporting app, developed by a local tech company specializing in healthcare solutions, went live after 2 weeks. QR codes appeared throughout the hospital linking to a simple form. Describe your concern. All reports are confidential and investigated within 48 hours. In the first month, 143 reports were submitted. Most involved minor issues, staff being dismissive, long wait times, and communication problems. But 15 reports described clear discriminatory behavior that resulted in additional staff retraining. Body cameras for security personnel were implemented hospital-wide. David Wilson, the security guard who had tried to maintain dignity during Sarah's ordeal, was promoted to security director and tasked with training his colleagues on de-escalation techniques. The first week of camera footage revealed eye-opening patterns. Security approached Black and Hispanic patients 47% more frequently than white patients. Response times to disturbances varied significantly based on the patient's apparent race, and class language used with non-white patients was noticeably more authoritative. David used the data to retrain his entire team. "We're here to help patients feel safe," he told them during mandatory training sessions, "not to make them feel watched." The mandatory cultural competency training was unlike anything the hospital had implemented before. Instead of generic diversity videos, staff participated in scenario-based workshops led by community activists and former patients who had experienced discrimination. Nurses role-played difficult situations. Doctors examined their own unconscious biases through interactive exercises. Administrative staff learned to recognize microaggressions and interrupt them professionally. Dr. Rachel Park, the resident who had tried to help Sarah, became a champion of the training program. "Medical school taught me to treat diseases," she said in an interview with the hospital newsletter. "This training taught me to treat human beings. Have you ever wondered if real change is even possible?" The Community Oversight Board held its first meeting in the hospital's main conference room. 9 members, as Sarah had specified, 4 patient representatives from different community organizations, 2 civil rights leaders from the NAACP and the Latino Community Alliance, 3 external medical professionals. Their first quarterly report was devastating and hopeful in equal measure. They documented 18 discrimination complaints that had been properly resolved through the new system, highlighted improvements in patient satisfaction scores among communities of color, and identified 4 departments that still needed intensive intervention. The board's recommendations carried real weight. When they suggested that the hospital's Spanish-language signage was inadequate, new bilingual signs appeared within 3 weeks. When they noted that security disproportionately questioned patients of color about their right to be in certain areas, additional training was immediately implemented. 3 months after Sarah's night in the emergency room, the data told a remarkable story. Patient satisfaction scores for cultural competency had increased, from 2.9 to 4.3 out of 5 among Black patients, from 3.2 to 4.5 among Hispanic patients, from 3.6 to 4.6 among Asian patients. White patient scores remained steady at 4.3, proving that equity improvements didn't require diminished care for anyone. Discrimination complaints, rather than disappearing, had actually increased from an average of 3.4 per month to 8.7 per month. But resolution times had decreased from an average of 26 days to 2.8 days, and patient satisfaction with complaint resolution had increased from 34% to 91%. Think about that for a second. The hospital's Google reviews had rebounded from the post-incident low of 2.6 stars to 4.2 stars. New reviews consistently mentioned the hospital's commitment to change and real accountability. The Journal of Healthcare Administration published a case study titled From Crisis to Culture Change: How Memorial General Hospital Transformed Discrimination Response. Sarah co-authored the article with Dr. Chen, turning their confrontation into a roadmap for institutional reform. The State Hospital Association invited Memorial General to present its transformation model at the annual conference. 15 other hospitals requested consultation on implementing similar programs. Sarah's law firm, Thompson & Associates, was retained by 4 additional hospitals seeking to proactively address bias before a crisis occurred. Her fee structure was unique. She charged based on measurable outcomes rather than hourly rates, aligning her financial incentives with actual patient care improvements. Dr. Michael Thompson withdrew his application to St. Luke's and signed a 6-year contract extension with Memorial General. His new compensation package included funding for bias research and a commitment to make Memorial a national model for healthcare equity. David Wilson was featured in Security Professional magazine as Security Director of the Year for his innovative approaches to patient-centered safety. His de-escalation training program was adopted by hospitals across 3 states. Jessica Rodriguez, whose live stream had captured everything, was hired as the hospital's community liaison. Her role involved engaging with neighborhood organizations and ensuring that community voices were heard in hospital policy decisions. Emma Martinez, the patient advocate, had become something of a legend in the hospital. Her monthly reports documented not just problems, but solutions. She had mediated 103 patient concerns, prevented 15 potential lawsuits, and created a feedback loop that allowed the hospital to identify and address bias before it escalated. More importantly, her presence had changed the entire culture of the emergency department. Staff knew that discriminatory behavior would be reported, investigated, and addressed. Patients knew they had someone to turn to when they felt mistreated. The ripple effects extended beyond Memorial. Emma's model was being replicated at hospitals across the region, creating a network of patient advocates who shared best practices and supported each other's work. Here's what really matters, though. Sarah's approach had proven something remarkable: that strategic action could achieve more comprehensive change than lawsuits, protests, or public shaming alone. By focusing on systems rather than individuals, by demanding accountability rather than punishment, she had created sustainable transformation. Linda's termination had been necessary, but it wasn't the goal. The goal was to ensure that no future patient would experience what Sarah had endured. The data suggested that the goal was being achieved. The hospital's annual $125,000 donation to civil rights organizations had funded legal aid services, healthcare advocacy training, and community education programs. The money was making a difference beyond Memorial's walls. But the real question is, what happens when the cameras stop rolling? 1 year later, Sarah Thompson stood in the same emergency room where she had been humiliated 12 months earlier. This time, she wasn't bleeding. She was delivering the keynote address at Memorial General's first annual Healthcare Equity Summit. The waiting room had been transformed into a conference space, filled with hospital administrators, patient advocates, and community leaders from across the region. Emma Martinez sat in the front row taking notes. David Wilson wore his new uniform as Director of Patient Safety. Dr. Michael Thompson introduced his wife with obvious pride. 12 months ago, I learned something important, Sarah began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. I learned that my worth as a human being wasn't determined by others' prejudice. It was determined by my response to that prejudice. The audience was silent, attentive. That night, I had a choice. I could have sued for millions and moved on. I could have destroyed careers and felt satisfied. Instead, we chose something harder. We chose to build. She gestured toward the transformed space around them. Memorial General Hospital now serves as a regional model for healthcare equity. Our patient advocacy program has been replicated in 53 hospitals across 7 states. Our bias interruption protocols are taught in medical schools. Our community oversight model is being studied by the Department of Health and Human Services. The numbers were staggering. Patient satisfaction among communities of color had increased by 71%. Discrimination complaints had decreased 49%, while resolution satisfaction reached 93%. The hospital had been awarded the State Healthcare Equity Excellence Award. But the real victory, Sarah continued, isn't in the awards or recognition. It's the grandmother who receives respectful care regardless of her accent. It's in the teenager who isn't followed by security because of his skin color. It's in the mother who knows her concerns will be heard. She paused, looking directly into the camera recording for the hospital's website and social media channels. Change doesn't happen because we demand it. Change happens because we design it, implement it, and sustain it. Sarah's final words echoed through the room. That night taught me that dignity should never depend on who you know, what you wear, or what you can prove. Together, we've made sure that my story becomes everyone's victory. Have you witnessed discrimination in healthcare? Your voice matters. Your experience can change someone's life. Healthcare equity isn't just a policy issue, it's a human issue. When we speak up, systems listen. When we demand better, institutions can become better. Sarah's story reached 6.2 million views across all platforms. It sparked policy changes at 156 hospitals nationwide. Columbia Business School created a case study on crisis management and social justice transformation. The story became required reading in healthcare administration programs. But the real measure of success wasn't viral fame. It was the thousands of patients who received better care because one woman refused to accept that discrimination was inevitable. Linda Martinez eventually found work at a small community clinic 2 hours outside the city. There, she completed extensive bias training and slowly rebuilt her understanding of patient care. Her story became a cautionary tale, but also one of potential redemption. She now volunteers, teaching nursing students about unconscious bias, using her own failure as a teaching tool. Dr. Margaret Chen was promoted to regional hospital director, tasked with implementing the memorial model across multiple facilities. She credited Sarah with teaching her that accountability could be a competitive advantage rather than a liability. Brian Foster completed his retraining and probation period. After a year, he was given a chance at a supervisory role again, this time in a different department with intensive oversight. He became an advocate for the new systems, often sharing his own story of how bias can blind even well-meaning people. Sarah Thompson continues practicing civil rights law, specializing in healthcare discrimination. Her firm's motto reflects the lesson of that transformative night: dignity through design. Justice through systems. She speaks at conferences nationwide, teaching other advocates how to turn crisis into lasting change. Her approach has become a blueprint: document everything, demand systemic change, focus on sustainability, and always remember that the goal isn't revenge, it's transformation. The cut on her forehead healed completely, leaving no scar. But the changes it catalyzed continue to grow, spreading from one hospital to another, from one community to the next. At a recent speaking engagement, a young medical student asked Sarah, "How do you stay calm when facing such blatant disrespect?" Sarah smiled, that same knowing smile she'd given Linda that night in the emergency room. "I stay calm," she said, "because I know something my opponents don't. I know that dignity isn't given, it's inherent. And I know that the most powerful weapon against injustice isn't anger. It's a strategy." She paused, looking around the room of future doctors and nurses. That night, Linda saw a black woman in plain clothes and assumed she knew my worth. She was wrong about everything: my identity, my profession, my power. But most importantly, she was wrong about this. She thought humiliating me would make me disappear. Instead, it made it impossible to ignore. Real change is messy. It's uncomfortable. It requires uncomfortable conversations, difficult admissions, and sustained effort. It's not enough to fire one nurse or demote one manager. Real change means examining every policy, questioning every assumption, and building systems that make discrimination harder to practice and easier to report. It means believing patients when they say they've been mistreated, even when it's uncomfortable. It means recognizing that isolated incidents are often symptoms of deeper problems. And it means understanding that diversity training isn't enough. Cultural competency isn't enough. You need accountability, transparency, consequences, and most importantly, you need systems that outlast any individual's commitment to equity. Sarah's story teaches us several crucial lessons. First, document everything. The live stream, the recordings, the witnesses, all of it mattered. Truth needs evidence. Second, know your worth. Sarah never let their treatment change how she saw herself. That inner dignity was her anchor. Third, think strategically. Revenge feels good for a moment. Systemic change feels good forever. Fourth, demand more than apologies. Apologies without action are just words. Sarah demanded and got transformation. Fifth, use your power wisely. Sarah could have destroyed careers and walked away with millions. Instead, she built something that would help thousands of future patients. If you've made it this far, you're probably thinking about the times you've witnessed injustice, the times you stayed silent, the times you spoke up, the times you wished you'd done more. Here's what I want you to remember. You don't need to be a lawyer married to a hospital chief to make a difference. You don't need connections or credentials. You just need to believe that every person deserves dignity, and you need to be willing to document, speak up, and demand better. Sarah's story went viral because Jessica hit record. It created change because Sarah came prepared with data, strategy, and clear demands. What's your story? What have you witnessed? What will you do about it? The comment section isn't just for reactions, it's for revolution. Share your experiences. Share this video. Tag the hospitals, clinics, and institutions that need to see it, because every view, every share, every comment is pressure. It's accountability. It's a reminder that people are watching, recording, and refusing to accept that discrimination is just how things are. That night in the emergency room, Linda thought she had all the power. She had the uniform, the authority, and the support of her supervisors. Sarah had nothing but a bleeding head wound and patience. But Linda didn't understand the most important truth about power. Real power is not the ability to humiliate someone. Real power is the ability to transform the system that allowed that humiliation in the first place. Linda lost her job. Sarah changed healthcare policy in hospitals across the country. Who really had the power? If this story moved you, hit that like button. Drop a comment sharing your own experiences with healthcare discrimination. Your voice matters. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story of quiet strength defeating loud prejudice. Most importantly, share this video. Because every person who sees this is one more person who knows their rights, knows their worth, and knows that change is possible. Remember, dignity isn't negotiable, respect isn't optional, and accountability isn't just possible, it's necessary. The question isn't whether discrimination exists. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Sarah answered that question with strategy, evidence, and unwavering determination. She turned her worst night into her greatest victory. She transformed humiliation into institutional change. She proved that one person, armed with truth, strategy, and courage, can change everything. Now it's your turn. What change will you create? This is how transformation happens, not with anger alone, not with lawsuits alone, but with strategic vision, clear demands, and the courage to turn pain into progress. Sarah's story reminds us that we are not powerless, we are not voiceless, and we are not alone. Every time someone speaks up, systems get better. Every time someone documents injustice, accountability becomes possible. Every time someone demands more than an apology, real change becomes inevitable. The revolution will be recorded. The question is, will you be watching or will you be creating it?